Good to have you with us in this edition of the Urban Debate at 9 p.m. tonight, viewers. We're going to talk about the shameful and quite regrettable kind of politics that's now unfolding at the cost of our migrants. For some of our netas, this has become political fodder. The pain, the agony, the struggle, the desperation, the helplessness of our migrants has become political fodder, unfortunately. States are fighting, governments are fighting between each other, within the states, between center and states. Parties are fighting with each other. A whole drama has been going on for the last few days about the buses in Uttar Pradesh and whether Congress wants to give buses and BJP is not taking those buses. Now they are taking the buses, but they're not buses, they're bikes and tempos and what not. People are out there on the streets walking with blisters. Pregnant women are delivering on the roads in 45-degree temperature. People are dying in road accidents, stuffed up in trucks because there is no place, no food, no money. And for some of our politicians, none of this matter. Instead of being honest and humble enough to come out and say, yes, we all failed. We all collectively failed. They are playing politics. This is one small glimpse of the reports we got today. From buses being lined up at the UP border this morning to buses now not being used and going back in the evening while politics played out. Take a look.
You can see at Bharatpur border, more than 500 buses are currently parked from the border, from the place where border starts and till the 4-kilometer patch. You can see these are the drivers, those who have driven these buses from various districts of Rajasthan, and they have been waiting for a green signal to go ahead. ये बताइए कहाँ से आए आप?
राजस्थान जी।
राजस्थान कहाँ से?
दौसा से।
दौसा से आए हैं। कागज बस का पूरा कंप्लीट
है।
तो अभी क्या बताया गया आपको, क्या बोल रहे हैं?
कि सवारी लेके जानी है
यहाँ से सवारी लेके जानी है। कहाँ पे?
दौसा, राजस्थान में।
वापस? अब आगे नहीं जाएंगे?
नहीं।
क्यों?
आगे के लिए हमारी परमिशन नहीं आई अभी।
परमिशन नहीं है। आप बताइए आप कहाँ से हैं?
दौसा से आए हैं।
हाँ।
यूपी के अंदर भेजेगा, यहाँ से कोई सवारी है।
सवारी आएगी। भेजेंगे यार। 500 buses which were bought in by the Congress people here at Bharatpur border have finally started returning. They've started taking U-turn. They have got a green signal from the Congress High Command to go back to their respective districts where they have come from. It's been 24 hours of high political drama, allegations, counter allegations, Congress versus BJP, Yogi Adityanath versus Priyanka Gandhi, and finally Uttar Pradesh government have decided not to allow these buses to enter Uttar Pradesh's jurisdiction.
Let's say good evening to our panelists. And this is not just a debate about bus politics. This is a debate about how our governments have failed our people. And instead of being accountable, instead of being humble and honest and taking responsibility for that, we are only saying everybody just point fingers at each other. Aradhana Mishra, leader of the Congress party, Shazia Ilmi, national spokesperson for the BJP, Dr. Ajay Alok, leader of the JDU, and Supriya Bhattacharya, general secretary and chief spokesperson for JMM, joins us this evening. I also have senior journalist Barkha Dutt with us this evening. Barkha has been on the road now for many weeks, bringing us stories of the real plight of the migrants. Shazia, I just want to understand, why don't we simply accept the fact that we completely failed these people, lakhs of people of our own country, instead of getting into this political blame game?
First of all, I would like to agree with what you said, that we are getting into a political blame game. And this is hardly the time or the moment to be political, because we are suffering from this pandemic. And this was really the time for us to be together. So this goes on to show the true mettle of who we are. And that indeed is a tragedy and nothing to boast of. But having said that, I would like to say that, yes, I would not be so pessimistic and say that everything that has happened is terrible. I think a huge efforts have been made. I think whether it's a government machinery, center, state governments, whether it's the police officers or the medical fraternity or the sarkari afsars or the tehsildars or the BDOs or even the karamcharis, safai karamcharis, I think they have really stretched their limits out to serve and to work. So I wouldn't call it a complete failure, no. But yes, it is terrible to see. It makes all of us want to, hang our heads in shame when we see people marching on like that. I mean, every state seems to have some excuse. And I don't want to get into this BJP Congress thing, but particularly on UP, if you like me to comment on, I can, because I have been watching the entire chronology of events. And yes, it's been very unpalatable and quite pathetic.
Yes, okay, let me actually ask Aradhana Mishra to begin with that. Aradhana Mishra, of all the things that we are right now should be focusing on and should be concerned about, how has it boiled down to simply bus politics between the Congress and the BJP?
Look, this is no politics at all. It was a very honest and a sincere effort of Priyanka Gandhi ji. See, Barkha ji is there with us on this show. She has seen, and I'm sure you must have also seen, the plights of these migrant laborers on the roads of UP. Agreed, there were efforts made by the government. We are not here, and we have decided we are not going to criticize the government, and we have never criticized the government of UP or even the central government. Yes, but we wanted to bridge up the gap. There are certain areas where the government, the machinery is not equipped enough, or we can say is falling short of it. So we just wanted to bridge up the gap. We offered 1,000 buses. In fact, we sent a list of 1,066 buses. The Chief Minister accepted that in a letter which we received from his office on behalf of the Chief Minister. He accepted the number and he asked us to send the list. We had sent the list to him. Practically, if you see, and technically also, there was correspondence made between the Chief Minister office and Priyanka Gandhi's office. When we had sent the list on the official mail of the Chief Minister, we were expecting at least that they should screen all the names we had sent. And if there were any lacuna in that, if they were not proper, they should have mailed back and they should have informed us through a mail or some kind of correspondence. But till date, no correspondence has been made about that list we had sent. If there were shortcomings, if there was a problem, we would have definitely got it back, checked from the Rajasthan government, and we would, and Priyanka Gandhi even offered.
No, I'm sorry, I'm not understanding these back and forth letter writing that's taken place. Aradhana Mishra, it just boils down to a simple fact. You said you have buses. They said, okay, get your buses by 12 o'clock. You got your buses the next day and they weren't used. Now, which I'm just simply trying to understand, why weren't they used? And if there is so much of sentimental feeling that Congress has for the migrants, why aren't these buses being used in Maharashtra? Why aren't these buses being used in Punjab? Why aren't these buses being used in Rajasthan? Or are you unaware, Aradhana Mishra, that people are walking even in these states without buses, getting blisters? Somebody walked all the way from Ludhiana to Lucknow and nobody gave them a bus.
Shazia ji is from UP and I think she will understand what I'm trying to say. Most of the migrant laborers in any part of this country, a large part of it is either from UP, Bihar, or some of it are from Jharkhand and Chhattisgarh. Mostly are from UP and Bihar. So these migrants who are coming back to UP. And I want to recall one more thing. The Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh, 15 days back, he made an announcement that he is going to bring back each and every migrant labor in any part of this country. He gave this vision to these laborers who were living in other parts to come back. When he couldn't provide substantial efforts were made, so these migrant laborers started walking. The pressure was on UP. Most of the laborers were coming from other places and they were stopped at the periphery of Uttar Pradesh.
You are right.
So the pressure...
You are right. They were coming from other places. And those are the states that I am mentioning. Punjab is run by Congress. Rajasthan is run by Congress. Maharashtra is run by Congress in alliance with two other parties. Why couldn't you give them buses there? Now, this just seems to me like a political fight in Uttar Pradesh to target Yogi Adityanath than genuinely helping the people.
No, It was no target at all. We had made this offer very clearly to help the people of migrants. It was a call by all the Congress leaders from UP. This was a request that we regularly, Priyanka Gandhi ji was monitoring it, and we told her that this problem is there in UP. So on our recommendation, on our request, she also was seeing what the plight you were also showing on television. Every channel was showing, the world was watching, the nation was watching. We saw that migrant levels, you were right. Pregnant women delivering on the road. So the pressure was in UP much more than any other state. So that is why we decided that on the border, 500 in Ghaziabad and 500 in Noida, we will deploy these buses, which will bring back these migrant workers and reach them safely to their native places. This is all. This was a simple...
No, I don't understand. I'm not too sure if you're not understanding my question, Aradhana Mishra, or you don't have an answer to the question. My question very simply is, why has this become about UP state and bus politics? Congress party is present in 3 other states where it's governing these 3 states, from where large number of migrants have to be taken to Uttar Pradesh, Jharkhand and Bihar. These same states could have started those buses. In Mumbai right now, people still don't have buses or trains. Neither do they in Rajasthan, nor do they in Punjab. They are still struggling in these places. I'm sorry, instead of taking accountability in the states that parties are running, they are literally indulging in a blame game in states where they are not. And that's become the problem here. I just want to bring in Barkha at this point to speak about the ground reality, in case our politicians are forgetting what's happening on ground.
Think that we should
Barkha,
leave the misery of the people in UP to
some
their places?
states.
Yeah. Tanvi,
I am trying to ask you about accountability where Congress is present. That's all it is. Barkha,
So
yes.
you want to leave the misery of... You want us to oversee the misery in UP? We are talking about UP. Why don't you understand
Barkha,
the
please.
accountability of... we are accountable.
All right,
Every opposition or ruling party...
No, I am not going to spend 45 minutes on prime time just talking about one state. This is a national debate. Yes, Barkha Dutt, go ahead, please.
But we have come here to debate about...
Yeah. Aradhana Mishra, I think the question is for me. Let me answer it, please, if you would. I've heard you quite patiently. Tanvi, thank you. As somebody who's now, this is my 65th day following migrant workers. And to me, this party politics over this issue is absolutely disgraceful. Let me tell you what I'm seeing on the ground. And I have traveled across 11 states. I'm now going into my 12th state. And what I'm seeing is that while fewer people might be walking today, there are still people who are walking our highways. If they're not walking, they are crammed at the back of trucks, crowded trucks, paying 3,000 rupees themselves to get home. To pay these 3,000 rupees, they've had to sell phones, they've had to sell belongings. I just did a report from inside a train that was going from Kalaburagi in Karnataka to Lucknow in Uttar Pradesh. And every single migrant worker told me that they had to pay for the ticket themselves. The cost of the ticket was 770 rupees. Tanvi, as far as I'm concerned, whether it's the center or whether it's the state government, each one with ad hocism in policy, with not factoring it in, with not getting the full state machinery to respond, with not showing sensitivity, has failed migrant workers. And to now reduce this into a BJP-Congress debate is just adding insult to injury. On the highways across the states I've been to, over 65 days, workers have been on foot, workers have been on the back of bicycles. A 15-year-old girl took her father on a cycle and cycled all the way to Bihar. Workers are at the back of trucks along with little children paying their passages. Workers are on trains paying their passages. So neither state governments nor the central government come out very well in this, for the simple reason that there is no coordination between the centers and the states, and instead it's all too easy to make this some Priyanka Gandhi versus Yogi Adityanath battle. Really, who cares? Who cares what Priyanka Gandhi and Yogi Adityanath feel about this? Try asking the migrant worker. Nobody cares. This is not the story. The story is a humanitarian crisis that is unfolding in India, and nobody cares about these two parties fighting about it in Uttar Pradesh.
Absolutely, absolutely right. Who cares about this? I genuinely want governments and parties to come out and start taking responsibility for their own states. Start taking responsibility for what they have done. But every time you ask somebody, they point fingers at the other side. Ajay Alok, why is it that we don't have one comprehensive policy? and better coordination between states and center. Every second day, third day, there is a new policy that is being announced to get the migrants home.
See, I don't think that is the case. Every state is doing their bit of share, and the center is also doing what it can do. But the problem arises when the parties get into it and start playing petty politics. Since the time of reverse migration, it started. From 1st May, when the trains started pouring in, and before that, 10 days back, we started seeing that hordes of laborers are being just moving towards their hometown. This all thing started, and who is taking advantage of it? You have to look at and analyze that. The first story happened at Anand Vihar at the start of the lockdown, when around 2 lakhs people were pushed to the Delhi borders by making them sit on the DTC, saying that we are going to leave you at the border, and from there, bus will take you to Bihar and UP. We were the first state who clearly said to the center that bus is not the solution, because we have around 28 lakh registered Biharis who have registered with us, and to whom we have given the help of 1,000 rupees each in their account. And to get 28 lakh people, it's not possible by bus, so trains have to be put into service. And accordingly, since first lockdown was into the progress and we have to do the containment, the center accordingly decided from 1st May that is going to run the train. And train was the real solution for that. Now the politics starts when the parties get into, for the heck of cheap publicity. I mean, you very correctly nailed the point that if there was bus, why it was not played in Rajasthan, why it was not played in Punjab, especially when we are seeing hordes of migrants even stealing a bicycle in Rajasthan to come back to Jaipur and to go to different states. And don't forget, in Rajasthan, you have equal number of Biharis, because we have run around 36 trains from Rajasthan till now, and we are in the process of running another 15 more. So when you start playing politics at the cost of migrant workers, this happens. And this nation is not fool enough to understand that who's playing politics. When UP is playing 15,000 buses of its own in taking the passengers, what was the need for Priyanka Gandhi to offer 4,000 buses? And especially 3 days on 16th, when this Auraiya incident happened, the bus was stopped at Rajasthan border, and those migrants were they were pushed into the trucks and then sent to the UP. Why those buses were not given to the migrants then? So there are multiple questions of allegations and allegations. What the thing is, right now, the party politics should be left aside. That can be done later. Right now, all the state and central government should concentrate their effort on getting the migrants home, because don't forget this also, that the more migrants come home, the more corona spread is there. We are witnessing in Bihar that out of every 100 migrants, we are finding 6 positive cases. So the sooner they come, better it is, because then we will be able to do the containment more. So our focus is right now to get the migrant as soon as possible. And that's what we are doing right now in Bihar.
Well, there is a 15-year-old girl, Mr. Ajay Alok, I'm sure you've heard about her by now, who actually cycled all the way from Delhi to Darbhanga with her injured father. Took her 7 days to travel 1,200 kilometers all the way. And not one state was able to help her on the way. Now, you tell me, if you don't, if the parties and the state governments should not admit this as the biggest failure of their policy and policy implementation. A 15-year-old cycled her way through 1,200 kilometers. People walked all the way from Ludhiana to Lucknow. Their legs were full of blisters. And they say the police didn't stop them. The police said, just keep on walking. Go ahead, walk. They were not stopped at any border. They crossed multiple state borders. So, despite all the grandstanding about the buses and the trains, the point that I'm trying to make is that the politicians need to admit that we are still not getting our implementation to the fullest. One day we say the fare onus is on states to collect. Then we say it's the center and the states will bear it. Now, which state will bear it? Will it be given upfront? Do the migrants have to pay upfront? Will they be reimbursed later? Who's giving them this money? Then we said the receiving states don't need to give an NOC, don't need to give an approval, because there was a bit of a massive confusion on that front. Now we are even reconsidering whether the starting states have to do it, and the whole decision should just be given to the center. There is a big policy mix-up that's taken, and every time I speak to somebody, Mr. Supriyo Bhattacharya, I hear blame game. Mr. Piyush Goyal, our Railways Minister, came out and counted states who said that they are not giving permissions, which is why they had to change the policy.
नहीं, देखिए ऐसा है ना हम लोगों ने अपने स्टेट में, देखिए शुरू से हम लोगों ने जिस बात को कहा है कि हम सेंट्रल गाइडलाइन के अलावा और कोई गाइडलाइन मानेंगे नहीं। इस देश में चूंकि शुरू से नीतियां सही नहीं रही, चाहे वो लॉकडाउन करने की हो या लॉकडाउन से फिर मजदूरों को लाने की हो, चाहे छात्रों की लाने की, हर जगह ये देखा गया है कि पहले यूपी के द्वारा कुछ ऐसे काम कर दिए जाते थे जो दूसरे राज्यों के लिए बाद में मुश्किलात पैदा किए। ये सारी परिस्थितियों का जड़ वहीं से शुरू होता है, नंबर एक। नंबर दो, हमारे यहाँ पर कोई भी हमारे राज्य के सीमा के अंदर में कोई भी पैदल नहीं चल रहे हैं। हम लोगों ने कहा है कि जहां पर भी आप पैदल चलते हुए श्रमिक को देखोगे, किसी भी लोगों को देखोगे, आप वहां उनको हाईवे पे ही बैठाओगे, पहले उनको खाना खिलाओगे, उसके बाद उनका चिकित्सा होगा और उसके बाद वो जिस गंतव्य तक जाना चाहेंगे देश के, हम वहां पर वाहन से हम लोग पहुंचाने का काम कर रहा है। हमारे स्टेट में ये प्रॉब्लम नहीं है। हाँ, हम लोगों को जितनी, क्योंकि हमारे लेबर्स जो है वो कोई क्लस्टर एरिया में नहीं है, वो स्कैटर्ड है, तो सबका रजिस्ट्रेशन करके सबको धीरे धीरे पिक एंड चूज करके उनको आइडेंटिफाई करके एक क्लस्टर में लाना, फिर वहां से ट्रांसपोर्ट करके रेलवे स्टेशन लाना, इसमें एक लंबा प्रक्रिया चलता है। तो उसीलिए थोड़ी दिक्कतें आ रही है। नहीं तो हम तो पहला स्टेट है जिन्होंने, हम लोगों ने कहा था कि हमको हवाई जहाज दे दो। हमको आज मालूम चला लेह और लद्दाख में 150 मेरे माइग्रेंट लेबर वहां पर है। अब उनको हमको लाना है। अब क्योंकि फ्लाइट चलने का शायद कुछ आया है, कल हम लोग उस बात को देखेंगे, वर्कआउट करेंगे, तो वहां से भी हमको लाना। हम अपने किसी लोगों को बाहर नहीं छोड़ेंगे और आपको विश्वास दिलाते हैं कि अब झारखंड के लोग कहीं बाहर नहीं जाएंगे, उनको हम लोग यहीं पर नियोजित करेंगे।
जी बने रहिए हमारे साथ भट्टाचार्य जी। I just want to also show our viewers these visuals that we've just got of people landing back from Italy in Goa. The flights that have been initiated by the government, and which is a good thing. Those who are stranded abroad should be back home, should be brought back home. But look how simply and easily that's happening. We've forgotten the people who are living in this country, who don't have money, who don't have food, and who are being made to walk for kilometers together, and we are bickering about it. This is the contrast and the unfortunate reality of our country. Barkha, you wanted to make a point? Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to come in on, the class divide and the ad hocism in policy, both by the center and all of the states that I've traveled through. These are great images of Indians coming home, Tanvi, but I think you make the absolute right point that the alacrity with which we have brought stranded Indians from across the globe home, and hurrah for that, has not been shown for the workers. So if you just trace this back to 2 months ago, first, the policy did not factor in the workers. Then the mass exodus began, which is the largest mass movement of Indians since the partition of this country. Then they were treated as invisible. Then there was a panic reaction saying, okay, go to the bus stops and take the buses home. Then there was panic that this is the opposite of social distancing. So there was an order issued saying, don't move. When they moved anyway and they started walking, we didn't even do something as basic as throwing open government shelters across the highways, along the highways, and saying, let's have temporary shelter and food there. They were India's invisible. They were India's forgotten people. Then we said, let's run trains. On the trains, we made them pay. I just spoke to workers who paid 770 rupees to go from Karnataka to Uttar Pradesh. Those who are not on trains, because there are many more people than there are trains, are paying 3,000 rupees to get onto trucks, right? So this is what's happening. There's been a complete flip-flop of policy. There's been an ad hocism of policy. We can't get our states to agree. In the meantime, the BJP and the Congress are squabbling amongst themselves. I just want to say shame on us. Shame on us as a country that we have first treated these people as invisible. Then we have blamed them for the absence of social distancing. What social distancing lecture are you going to give to 100 people crammed at the back of a truck with their children and their entire universe packed into their patties? I mean, do we not realize how we are stripping these people first of the right to livelihood, then of the right to work, and then of the right to dignity?
Yes, Shazia, that is true, isn't it? And unfortunately, we've been very, very late in realizing this.
Yes, while I agree with the fact that these are indeed inalienable rights, the right to livelihood, but also in a situation like what we are facing, and which is totally unprecedented, which is COVID-19, where the world is reeling under, there have to be guidelines. And so obviously the government, center and state do walk the tightrope, because you have to protect lives, you have to protect livelihoods, because the nature of the viruses was still unknown, and this was a good step taken at that point of time. So retrospectively, a lot of things can be said. I don't think I would call them flip-flops of the policy. Yes, I do agree. Many places there has been very poor implementation, and there has been lack of clarity insofar as execution and implementation is concerned. There is also the fact there are some groups and some parties which have indulged in rabble rousing, in rumor mongering, and not being good enough with issuing of e-coupons, knowing very well that there is no provision of Wi-Fi, and thereby fooling the migrants to create this situation. And I would also like to add to all that you've been said, let's not play one Indian against the Indian. If the middle class Indians are getting to come back home, it's a good thing. So let's not pitch the poor against the middle class or the rich, because
No, but it's not Indian
really
versus
makes it-
Indian.
I'm not for
It's
it.
government's policy for one
I'm not
segment
for it at
versus
all.
the other.
No, it's not so. It's not so
It's
at all.
the
If you
government
see the
policy
stimulus,
differentiation
that is
and
completely
the
untrue.
implementation.
That
Yes, it
completely
is.
untrue.
Please
I would
tell
like to-
me,
let me finish.
today
Let me finish
Finance
saying-
Minister
let me finish saying
Shazia,
what I'm
Finance
saying.
Minister
Let me
Nirmala
finish saying what I'm
Sitharaman.
saying. Let me finish saying what I'm saying.
Okay.
Let me finish saying what I'm saying. You
Okay.
butted in. If you see the stimulus, if you see the package, if you see the beneficiaries, whether it's Jan Dhan or others, it is for the very poor. I've heard the middle classes and businessmen complain, saying, "Oh, your government, all the party is doing is working for the poor. And look at what we are going through. We are the ones paying taxes." So you see, you get it from all sides. So let's not do that. And if you seriously look at what is happening, every sector has to be looked at. You have to give economy a fillip. You have to ensure that civil aviation and all other sectors take off, infrastructure, roadways, so as to provide jobs to the poor. We all are connected in this. You see,
So,
these are not, we don't live in silos.
Okay.
We don't live in silos.
Yes.
Whether it's the middle class or the very poor, there has to be a
No, but
package
that's not a fair
that touches
comparison.
their lives. Yes.
That is not a fair comparison. I will tell you, while the industry is not happy, because you announced a 20 lakh crore stimulus package, and you actually gave a 1 lakh crore stimulus package, or maybe 2 lakh crores if you add some of the other announcements. That's what's come to. That's why they are not happy. It's not that the entire money has gone
that
to
is
the
not-
poor.
that is-
Secondly,
that
you
is
are
not
right.
entirely
It's not
true,
pitting
Tanvi,
one
and I think
Indian
it should be-
against the other Indian.
Yeah.
This has been admitted
I
by
would
the
not do
government
it.
itself,
It's your choice.
Shazia. This is
It's
not
your
up for a
choice,
debate.
Tanvi.
The finance minister
you would-
today
if-
has
if-
come out.
If the people were not being brought in, you'd be saying, "Look at what India is doing. These are students stranded there for 60 days, and we're not bringing
No,
them in."
you're
So it
misunderstanding the
depends on what you want
point.
to
Let
say
me
at this
clarify
point
to
of
you.
time. You would be the first one, Tanvi.
No, you're
Followed by
misunderstanding
Barkha.
but the point that Barkha and I were making, Shazia, the point is this. Listen to me, you're misunderstanding. It's not about pitting one Indian against the
No,
other.
no, I'm
Please
not
don't turn this
misunderstanding.
conversation into
I'm
that.
crystal
This is
clear
about
about
government's
this.
policy
I think
and
all
government
that's being done.
managing
I think a
to
lot is
implement
being
one
done.
policy
Clearly, it's
versus
not
the
enough.
other.
It is
And you
terrible.
have
It is
failed
terrible
in
to see those
implementing the
pictures.
policy for the
But the
migrants.
fact
I'm
is,
sorry,
let's
I'm not
not
going to
pit
let you
one Indian against
railroad
the
this
other. I'm totally
and
against
say
that.
whatever you want to. Okay, let me tell our viewers, the finance minister just 2 hours ago in an interview to ANI, and ANI's editor admitted, this is the first admission that has come from the government, that all of us, everybody together could have done better and acted sooner. This is the government, and this is
But
no
we
less
all
than
are
the
saying
finance
that.
minister admitting
Yeah, of
over
course.
the migrants crisis that we could have done better and sooner. No, that's exactly the point. Now don't say that
No,
we are admitting
no,
that.
no,
You are
it's
saying
not
you
a
did the
matter of
best that
don't
you
say. We have
could.
been saying
In
it.
retrospective,
We have
it
been
sounds
saying
good, but
it.
it's not.
It's never enough. In a country
No,
like
admit it.
ours,
No,
the way
no,
things
nobody
are,
has
it is
admitted
never
that so
enough.
far. No,
I'm
no,
sorry.
no.
I'm sorry.
It's
admission.
nobody from the government
I'm
has
sure
admitted
Nirmala
so far,
Sitharaman
Shazia,
and the
that we
government-
were slow.
that
You keep
think
defending
you
it,
take
saying
like
that
because
policy
of your
made
bias.
sense then.
That
Policy
because
makes
of your
sense
bias,
now.
you take it
You
as an
have been
admission of
slow.
anybody's guilt.
You have had a chaotic policy. You
you-
cannot coordinate with the states.
That's your version, Tanvi. That's your bias talking.
You're admitting this
And
now.
that's your subjectivity. That's your subjectivity. Even the way you interpret Nirmala ji's words is your subjectivity. I see Nirmala ji's words as a sign of compassion and honesty. That this much we are doing is clearly not enough. And nobody would say it's enough, is it? Can anything be enough? So that's how you want to see it. That is where your subjective bias comes in, Tanvi. That's what I'm pointing out to. I said, this is the first thing I said when you started the debate. This is the first thing I said. Clearly, there's nothing to boast of, even before you raise the point further. I said it myself. Those were my opening comments. Clearly, it's not enough. Clearly, we can do more. Clearly, we don't know what to do. Clearly, we don't understand what is happening with the reverse migration, and states and center needs to do more. Nobody is disputing that. But you are the one pitting Indian against Indian, politicians against bureaucrats, and what have you. And I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's fair. It wrenches my heart.
You are telling me that you are admitting governments don't know what to do?
No,
Are you Shazia saying that the governments don't know what to do?
Deliberately, Tanvi,
you just said we don't know what to do.
So
I can play that clip again for you. I'm listening to you.
You are so steep. You're so steeped in
your
attempts
to provoke me on the alleged bias won't work.
You're so
you just said we could have done more. We are not doing enough.
I've not admitted that.
We don't know what to do.
Lying, Tanvi. You're lying. Tanvi, you're lying. You got that? I think you're lying. Yeah, arre ho gaya. Because you are putting words in my mouth.
Ajay Alok, the finance minister today came out and said,
you're trying so hard.
The government and the finance minister today came out and said we all should have done a lot more sooner and faster, but some of the states don't have the information. We have not been, the lesson from this is that we don't have local district level information on our migrants. Is this how much we are scrambling today?
No, this is very true. Now you're talking of policy. Let me ask you one thing. Migrants are returning from certain states which have a big load of migrant population like Maharashtra, Gujarat, Delhi, Rajasthan, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, all these industrialized and developed states which have loads and loads of migrants. Now, what led to this migrant exodus and what led to this reverse migration? These migrants, they are contributing to the state's economy, making those states richer, putting the money in their coffer more and more. Now, if this kind of a crisis comes to a state, isn't this the respective state's responsibility to just instill confidence into the migrants' mind that don't worry, we are with you, we'll take care of you? You kept on coming on television, kept on giving interviews that we are going to take care, we'll do everything possible. Center has also delivered 3 months ration and everything, cash incentives. But then also, why migrants started just moving for the reverse migration? Have you just thought, nobody asked those states that what they have done? Why this reverse migration happened to them? Now, what happens after 1 or 2 months when this thing comes in control? Do you think all this migrant population is going to return to that state? Then what happens to the economy? I mean, don't you blame those states that it is their responsibility? I'm not talking in terms of government. It could be a BJP ruled state, it could be a Congress ruled state, and any state. But the states have the bigger responsibility, a bigger role to play. But what we've seen that in places like Delhi, loudspeakers were used to push the migrants out. That yes, we'll be giving you the bus, we'll be taking you to the border, and you can go back to your respective states. We have seen in Mumbai, people have been arrested of a political party who drove out migrants in Bandra to put them in train that special train is coming for going to UP and Bihar. Why? And those parties who are in power right now. So why they were creating rumor mongerings? No questions are being asked to those states. And very conveniently, the whole policy matter, you're blaming it to the center. It's not only alone center's responsibility. When sending migrants is a sender state's responsibility.
No, I completely
agree
with you,
all the
states.
It is
the state's responsibility as well.
It is the state's responsibility.
Maharashtra, Delhi, Punjab, Rajasthan, Karnataka, Gujarat, all states. Gujarat. And I'm not going to mince my words, irrespective of the parties. Maharashtra is making a mess even now, Aradhana Mishra. Even now, for all the love and care that Priyanka Gandhi is showing for people in Uttar Pradesh, those who are stranded in Maharashtra from Uttar Pradesh, nobody is caring about them. They don't still have a bus or a train. Every day they walk for kilometers together. They're sent back home saying, "Aaj nahi hai, available nahi hai." Some are just being dropped to the border. States have started dumping the migrants at the border, saying figure your way out from here on. Is that the way?
Tanvi ji, let me start with what Barkha ji said. And I agree with what she is saying because I know she's very sensitive about these issues and she's a person who will speak what she sees on the roads. Always, I've seen her in journalism. Now, this is a fact. This was a pandemic which nobody had ever foreseen or couldn't even perceive what is there for future. So definitely, I agree. The governments were doing their best. The best they were doing, that was not enough. Number one, there was much more they could have done. As you said, Finance Minister has accepted this right. I'm grateful for her. She has made an honest statement. Now, if you talk about one thing Ajay Alok ji said, which I also agree, that there is a coordination problem between the state and the center, which we are facing in Uttar Pradesh also. You were talking about the people, migrant laborers in Mumbai who want to come back to UP or Bihar or other places, and they all every time you see thousands of people at railway station. One thing I will tell you, which is I'm sure you must be aware, and Ajay ji will support me in this. There is a technicality where the list of the people who are going to board the train, it is sent to the concerned state, and then the concerned state gives a acceptance, and then those trains are sent. It is now here in UP. If you please check, it was and I'm making a statement, quoting my statement, that for UP, Maharashtra government has delayed, UP has delayed the acceptance of Maharashtra government for more than 1 week for the trains. It was delayed. I'm not saying that it was done deliberately. Definitely, I'm not going to accuse anybody, but there was definitely a communication
No, it wasn't.
Gap.
It is a failure of the government because they were cancelling trains in Karnataka and Gujarat also. Aradhana Mishra trains from UP. The big violent incident that happened in Rajkot on Sunday when migrants went on a rampage because the train didn't leave for 12 hours. They didn't know if it was cancelled, delayed. Was actually a train going to Uttar Pradesh.
There was no information.
And then the railways kept telling us that the permission hasn't come from Uttar Pradesh. So that is irrespective of the party. It's actually the failure of individual state governments and failure of the central and state governments to work together while a huge humanitarian crisis is unveiled here. I'm sorry, I'm completely out of time, so I will have to thank everybody who's joined us on this debate. But the only thing I want to say, and I don't care which party you're from, and I don't care what your political agenda is. I care about the fact that even now, as we speak, thousands of people are walking on the roads. Even now as we speak, they're managing to cross borders. Some good Samaritans may be giving them food, but otherwise they're on their own with no money. We are still not getting our transport act together. We are still not able to coordinate on this and get these people home safe and sound. And this is a colossal failure of not just the state government or not just the central government, even us as people, as a society. The industries who are supposed to employ them, who abandoned these laborers and daily wage workers, the society who turned away as soon as the lockdown happened and forgot about all the help that these people give us. They drive our cabs, they are part of your domestic health. We forgot about them. And so did the governments. And this is a wake-up call. This is a part of India that always gets forgotten and always has to suffer, no matter what the tragedy is. When will that change? Think about it. Thank you so much for joining us on this conversation. Welcome back. We continue tracking the international developments as far as the race and the hunt for a COVID vaccine is concerned. The research that's going on, over 108 different projects are currently taking place across the world, and we are hoping that one of them finds us a solution soon enough. In fact, the one that created news a couple of days ago was the Moderna vaccine that is being developed by a Massachusetts-based biotech company, Modern Inc. and the positive result has surely gotten everybody's hope up. Now, I just want to tell you very basic about it before I go across to our expert. Moderna vaccine for COVID-19 is being created using genetic material of the virus called mRNA. It was tested on 45 healthy individuals between the age of 18 to 45 years. Participants received about 25 to 250 microgram dose of the vaccine. 8 participants who received 2 doses managed to defeat coronavirus. The antibodies produced a higher level of protective antibodies in these cases, and few people showed side effects like pain, redness and fever. Now remember, this is still very, very initial stages and we have a long way to go, but there is some hope. It could at the end of the day be some other country, some other place that finds a vaccine sooner, a more effective one. But just to understand, what does this mean for our war against coronavirus, and how long will we have to wait, and what if by then the virus itself begins to evolve in a way that completely dumbfounds us, and there are reports already emerging of that taking place. So let's say good evening to Dr. Ashish Jha, Director for Harvard Global Health Institute, who's joining us right now. Dr. Jha, thank you so much for speaking to us and to the viewers of Mirror Now here in India. Let's begin with the Moderna, vaccine research that's going on, and what your views are about just how far along we are from a possible vaccine.
Yes, so thank you for having me on, and good evening. There are about 100 different efforts across the world. 8 of them are in clinical trials, meaning they're being studied in people. And Moderna is one of the ones that's further along, but there's also the one from Oxford. There are a couple in China. There are many different vaccine efforts. Now, what we learned on Monday was that in the phase 1 trial, so your viewers need to know, phase 1 is only for safety, just to make sure the vaccine is safe. They gave it to 45 people, and then for 8 of those people, they looked at the blood to see if those people had developed antibodies, and the antibodies well enough to potentially defeat the virus. And they found that in all 8 they did. We don't know whether they also looked in the other 37. We don't know for sure that these antibodies will definitely work. But all of this is, in my mind, very good news. It is just giving us more information that we probably can develop a vaccine that will end up being effective and safe against the coronavirus.
Even at this stage, considering these 100 different attempts that are being made, how long do you think it will take for people to actually get access to this vaccine?
Yeah, so even under the best of circumstances, I think we are probably 8 to 12 months away from the time when people can get vaccines. So I don't really see much of a realistic chance of having a vaccine this year in 2020. Our president has said he'd like to see a vaccine this year. Of course, we all want to see a vaccine this year. I think much more realistic is sometime early to middle of next year.
Okay, simultaneously, Dr. Jha, there is also a lot that's being said and written about possible drugs, medicines, not just a vaccine, but a medicine cure that, we may find for this virus. Could you shed some light on that aspect?
Yeah. So just as there are hundreds of efforts being made on vaccines, there are many hundred efforts being made on therapies. We have one treatment right now that looks promising, and that's remdesivir. That is a drug that is effective in people who are very sick in the hospital. It might be effective in healthier people, too, who have just gotten early in the infection. We don't know. But there are many other efforts, and I am optimistic some of them will work. There's antibodies that are being developed as therapy to give to people once they're infected. I doubt any of them will end up being a cure, but what they could do is take somebody who is very severely ill and might die and make their illness less severe. And of course, that would be great as progress. But ultimately, the pandemic only comes to an end when we have a vaccine, which I said is somewhere between 8 and probably 12 months away.
Oh, great. Dr. Jha, thank you so much for taking the time out for speaking with us. And I hope the next time we speak, we are one step closer to finding that vaccine, to getting that vaccine. Thank you so much indeed for speaking with us. Well, let's continue with our focus on the India Revival Mission, and one of the sectors that I want to talk about right now is the information technology sector. A sector that should ideally be benefiting from this at some point, because technology is what is going to help us redesign our lives, redesign our work life, the way we go about living in this world in times of a pandemic. But of course, the initial impact on the IT companies has also been pretty much similar to every other sector. Their business has been impacted. Clients are reconsidering their services right now. Everybody is cutting down on expenses. Businesses are shut, and that's also, of course, impacting our IT companies. Joining me right now is Mr. C.P. Gurnani of Tech Mahindra. Mr. Gurnani, thank you so much for speaking with us. Let's begin with your outlook for the IT sector. Once a big favorite in the Indian industry, how do you expect the IT sector to tide through this tough time?
So the two parts, since you are handling currently revival of economy in India, and number two is the question is related to the IT sector. I think Indian economy, we all understand that the stimulus, by the time it gets into the hands of the consumer, there will be a bit of a pain and a bit of a challenge. We are all very, very conscious that for the economy to get revived, the public expenditure practically in all areas of consumption, all areas of the monetary supply chain will have to increase. Regarding the IT sector, there are really three parts. Number one, I think technology is going to be the centerpiece of the recovery. And for technology to be the centerpiece of recovery, all of us in India have to treat technology as the basic infrastructure layer. Now, that basic infrastructure layer means that whether it is public spending or private spending, to create competitive cloud infrastructure, to create a digital backbone, to be able to add another 500 million smartphone users. As long as we understand in today's world, a lot of recovery will depend upon not only the physical infrastructure, but also the digital infrastructure. I think we would be able to leverage it. India's biggest strength is the digital, and 4.3 million people, 99% working for overseas clients. I think time has come where some of us repurpose ourselves for India.
Mr. Gurnani, as we try to get accustomed to this new normal, which is living with the virus, and all experts and governments are saying that's what we need to do right now. It will entail redesigning our lives. A lot of people will have to continue working from home. We'll be using more of technology, increasing our dependence on technology as we do that. Now, how does that work out, for the IT companies? What is it that your company is doing to make use of this opportunity?
Then we look at the two ways to look at how you identify opportunities. The old method was follow the money. It doesn't matter whether stimulus money, private equity money, VC money, loan money, but you basically followed the money. The other way of now looking at, because the data sources have become a lot more, you start looking at other demographic figures. And those demographic figures could be where there is a demand, where there is a more job descriptions coming in, where there is more unemployment coming in. So when we look at the global world, we're seeing increased use of virtual technologies. And virtual technologies is not the Zoom or the Microsoft Teams or the WebExes of this world. What we are seeing is AR, VR. What we are seeing is substantial investment in science and medicine. We are seeing use of AI and cloud-based technology increasing. And we are also seeing universities defining the e-learning. It's no longer about just doing a few concerts where everybody is sitting in their drawing rooms and doing a few of these live concerts. It is more about how to make it interactive, how to make it two-way, how to be able to judge the reaction of the audience. And I think one of the fastest adoption we are seeing is in telemedicine, but I think it will be a lot more as we go along in public services, citizen services. I do believe technology is ready. It's only the adoption will now increase dramatically.
All right, Mr. Gunani, unfortunately, we're out of time, but I appreciate the fact that you joined us and spoke with us. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Well, we are out of time on this edition of the Urban Debate. Thank you for being with me.